Hear that? That's the sound of steaks on a grill. But this isn't just any steak, it's the most delicious filet mignon you'll ever put on your grill. Not from the supermarket, not even from the butcher, it's from bestfiletmignon.com. You see, the folks at Best Filet Mignon searched all over the United States for small family farms raising only the finest Angus beef from the highest quality cattle. The result? The most tender, succulent, flavorful steak you'll ever taste. That's why they call themselves Best Filet Mignon. Go to bestfiletmignon.com and order now. Choose between USDA Prime, Choice, or Select. Your steak is cut, vacuum sealed, and shipped fresh, not frozen like Omaha steaks. They even throw in the free shipping. Then grill them up and, well, you'll know what to do after that. Just promise you won't use any steak sauce, and trust me, for the best steak you'll ever taste, guaranteed, go to bestfiletmignon.com. That's bestfiletmignon.com and put in the coupon code Jacobs. In Kansas City, I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and welcome to our show here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m., taking your calls and talking about the world of sports psychology. And today is our first live show on 810WHBTV.com, so looking forward to not only getting to hear me, you get to watch me as well. And today we're going to have a great show because joining me this morning is my good friend Peter Malone, swim coach for 42 years, coach of Olympians, coach of national champions, coach of high school champions, college champions, you name it. Peter has coached all these people, and we're going to be talking in a few moments about parents. We're going to talk about coaches. We're going to talk about the role of sports in society today. We've spent 27 years working together, and Pete's now retired. I don't know that I'll ever retire, but Peter's lucky enough to be shuffling his grandchildren around now all the time. And we're going to be talking with Pete here in a moment about just about what it takes to be a successful coach, a successful parent. You know, in society today, we have all these issues with youth sports. We talk about crazy parents, crazy coaches on the sidelines. Just last week, we talked on the show about Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, deliberately stepping onto the field to block a punt returner in a game. He's been fined $100,000. You have Jason Kidd, the head coach of the NBA, Brooklyn Nets, great player for many, many years, now entering the coaching ranks, who deliberately had a player knock him, punch him, sort of, so he'd spill a drink on the court to get a timeout. He was fined, and you've got these issues going on in sports today. And so we've got a lot of things going on where the role of coaches is becoming more and more magnified, and how they impact their athletes. And this filters down from the professional level down to the youth sport level all the way. I also want to mention as we get going today, we have a sponsor for our show. It's bestfiletmignon.com, and you get filet mignons packaged in a great way. You get these filets sent to you, and if you want to cook some steaks for the holidays, we're going to talk about our sponsor here as we move on, bestfiletmignon.com. I've had these steaks, and they are absolutely delicious, and we're going to grill some up after the show and have some steaks. So, Peter, thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having me, Andy.
You're retired now, so getting up early. You had to sleep in. You slept in today.
Well, I'm sleep in. I don't have to set an alarm. That was my dream. One of my major goals in life was when I had a part of my life where I didn't have to set the alarm, because I did it 7 days a week, and did it for 42 years. So over and above my athletic time. So I guess you get up over 50 when you start doing that. So it's kind of crazy.
So you would be at practice at what time in the morning typically?
I would arrive at between 4:30 and 4:45.
And you were awake?
Yeah, only 6 days a week.
Okay.
The seventh day was usually a later start.
Okay. You and I have known each other since 1983. We met years and years ago. We spent many, many years working together, working with your team, the Kansas City Blazers. One of the most enjoyable relationships I've had was working with you, and your understanding of the psychological importance and the role it plays with the swimmers that you've coached. And one of the things I enjoyed working with you was that we would work together with athletes to help them reach their potential. And the Blazers' motto was commitment to excellence, which you came up with and spent many, many years working on. You had, I believe, 8 Olympic swimmers, 4 gold medalists, if I'm correct?
Correct. 4 gold
Okay.
medalists.
Most recent one was last year in London
London.
with Shannon Vreeland, who swam with the Blazers now at the University of Georgia. You had Catherine Fox, Jenny Wagstaff. You had Mark Dean. You've had several.
Scott Goldblatt won a gold medal as well.
Yes. So you've had several athletes. You've run the gamut as a coach. You've seen every level of performance. You've worked with kids. You've worked with coaches. You've worked with parents. You've worked with officials. You've seen everything that goes on. And now that you've stepped back out of the sport, as a retired coach who spent 42 years coaching every level, where do you see youth sports today, positively and negatively? From your opinion, where is it at right now?
Well, I think to clarify that, you have to understand where I began. And the key element to where I began was the reason I got into coaching youth sports was I, one, saw myself as an educator, and two, saw sports as my vehicle, okay, versus an end in itself. And when I started that in the late 60s, there seemed to be a lot of other people that were around me or touched my life or I was being associated with that all felt the same way. I find a major shift in the majority. And I think probably you sit here and you talk about my accolades of coaching at the top. And, you know, I ran a family swim team. So I think that should be clarified. You know, there's different levels of sport, you know, and I think we all see it. And obviously you have the Heisman last night. That's a whole nother game. But you listen to them talk about their journey. So, I mean, you know, I pretty much kept myself in a youth family-based swim program, which is the one I built, because I saw it as what I started off with. It was the vehicle, and there was a purpose to it. I'm not sure that all the coaches, you know, I jotted something down when you asked me to come today, and, you know, I think, and the question you told me we wanted to talk about was going to focus more to the coaching side of it, okay, but I think obviously parents are coaches, coaches are parents. So to separate the two is almost impossible in most cases. But what is the number one purpose, you know, of why you coach? And I wonder how many people can answer that. And I think more importantly, what is the answers?
Well, to me, it would be to teach, to educate, to guide, to be a mentor. That would be the role I would think a coach should have first and foremost.
And that was kind of the game I played with myself, is that I had to be able to look in the mirror and be able to say to myself, am I still doing the things that brought me here? And many times those were the boundaries that helped me pull back in line when I got out of line, okay? But, you know, you were referring at the beginning of your show to, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers situation or the NBA basketball circumstance. And, you know, when I started coaching, part of coaching was being that we were performers. We were on a stage. We were entertaining parents beyond entertaining athletes. And I think also the antics of coaches for decades have been, you know, in chronicles. And you got plenty of little TV, now even more media tips, and you can follow it, you know what I mean, like everything else. But it doesn't make it right. I think they have to become aware that we need to alter our behavior, because we could do a lot of these things and nobody saw it other than the people sitting behind us, and I kind of called it our audience, which was sitting in the stands or whatever. But now it can be dissected in milliseconds.
I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Joining me this morning is former head coach of the Kansas City Blazers, Pete Malone. We're talking about parents and coaches and youth sports and where we're at today in society with this. And, you know, Pete, when we take the role of coaches today, what I see with a lot of people who get involved, they see it as a way to help their kids, to help develop them, but a lot of them are doing it because, well, you know, my son, he's got some, you know, he's a pretty good baseball player. He might have some major league talent. I'm going to help him with that. My son, well, you know, my daughter, well, she's going to get a scholarship to play softball in college. I can see how good she's going to be. So a lot of parents get involved because they want to help their kids out. But then what happens is, I think, just to go back to what you just said right there, the purpose gets screwed up. Instead of teaching and educating and helping them grow, there's so much of a focus on results and the end result, and on winning and on medals and trophies and times and things like this instead of the process. We talked for years about the process, teaching kids how to develop, how to get better. And I think a lot of people have got the process today screwed up because it's more about themselves than it is about the kids.
Yeah, it's I'm in a pretty good position because I have 3 of my own children, which many people say, well, how did they enjoy swimming? Well, they never swam.
And why was that?
Because they weren't born to be swimmers. They were born to be human beings and to chart their dreams. And it was my job to help them find their talents and orchestrate what made them happy and be good. If it was great that they picked my vehicle, I had to remind myself there were a lot of other vehicles out there besides the sport of swimming or sports in general. But they have to finish the process at the time that I look at myself as what I call, being the parent of raising them. And I'm now, I'm a grandparent. It's a whole different role. And they're adults, and you got to be able to shift. And I guess they laugh at me at times, and they'll say, because they'll use a lot of the quotes that I've used, because I'm big on quotes.
Yes, you are. I've heard many of them over the years.
But it's just because I think they trigger pictures. You know what I mean? And if you can trigger a picture, you can then define some clarity. But life is a journey, not a destiny. And you can apply that across things. And you just got to then go back and analyze what you just said. But I think, it's, as I reflect after I've done it for 42 years, it's more some of the things I did when people say, well, how did you do it? Why didn't your children swim? Well, because they didn't have to swim. They had me at home every day. That was way too much, as they would tell you. You know what I mean? So, it would just been overload, well, they missed the opportunities. And I said, no, they didn't miss the opportunities. Life's theirs. You know what I mean? Life is full of all kinds of opportunities. I wrote another note when I was preparing to come in here and talk with you, because I don't think swimming, I don't do this. I do read about a lot of things and follow things more from my point of being an educator and being a person that believes that every one of us should be doing something to make a difference in tomorrow's. And that is part of my responsibility. But, the parents used to be driven, and I'm talking about the negative side. I think there's a lot of them that are driven by all the right reasons. But you have to constantly go back and ask yourself, are you staying on task? And one of my games with myself is when I looked in the mirror, am I being just as energetic? Am I being just as dedicated? Am I giving everything that I've asked the athletes to give? And when I can't answer that question, it's time to retire. Partially why I retired, because I started having a lot of other things in life that were very important to me. Grandchildren, and moving on with other phases of life. The other thing is remember that when this kid's 12 years old, and this is another mental gymnastics game for me, he's got 1 year to do it. I've been doing it at the end for 42 years. I was looking at 12-year-olds. They don't change. Life changes, society changes, but they are just been around for 12 years.
And I think that's a key point right there. Kids are kids. Doesn't matter that it's 2013 or it's 1943. Kids are kids. But the fact is, society's changed. I think the goals that a lot of parents have today has changed. Back when you first started the Blazers here in Kansas City in the was it late 60s, early 70s to now, okay, the goals of a lot of parents, I'm sure, changed. You heard parents come in say, well, here's why we're enrolling on your team or signing up our kids for your team. And I'm sure there was a shift towards, I want my kids to learn how to swim and become successful, to we want to get a scholarship, this is the best team to be on, etc. I'm sure that there was a shift with that.
Yeah, I think society has grown, so I don't want to look at, a lot of times people say, well, change can be negative, and no, life's going to keep evolving. There's no 2 days that are the same. It's like fingerprints. And so once you adopt some of those principles that, you don't go backwards, you go forward, and you got to become comfortable with that. And as a parent, that's a challenge, but as a coach or an educator, we're doing the same thing. So you got to bring all these things together. But a lot of parents evolved, and I think as time went on, their egos got in front of why they were parents and why they were putting their children in sport. Doesn't mean that's in every household, but I think that's one of the tests. If I'm going to do the 12-year-old test and remind myself that I have to be just as excited, just as exuberant, just as into what's going on in his life today or her life, they need to realize why they put their kid in sport. I think what's happened is that, the economics of the game, because you started off, every one of your examples was a professional sports coach. You know what I mean?
Because that filters down, in my opinion, to the youth.
Not a complaint. You know what I mean? But it's all evolved. How did they all get there? And not enough analysis of the journey, okay? And I mean by themselves. And I think if we spent more time reflecting when we have such a important position as an educator slash coach slash parents, how did I get here and why did I get here? And am I still just as proud as I was when I started? You know, but you know, scholarships, you know, I found that parents never talk to me about, I put my kid in sport so they can get a scholarship. That became a highly relevant subject. You know what I mean? And I reminded them that you're asking your child to take on a full-time job at age 18. You know what I mean? You know, you're looking at it as a way to get out of something, but they're taking on a big-time job besides going to school at the same time.
I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and joining me this morning is former head coach of the Kansas City Blazers, Pete Malone. Pete coached for 42 years here in the Kansas City area. He's coached numerous athletes at all levels, all the way up to the Olympic Games, including gold medalists in the Olympics. We're talking about parents and coaches and the role of coaches and parents in sport today. And if you'd like to give us a call, our phone number is 913-3810810. If you're thinking of coaching your kids, you're wondering about the positives or negatives that go into that, give us a call, 913-3810810. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and we're in the Leader in Sports, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Hear that? That's the sound of steaks on a grill. But this isn't just any steak, it's the most delicious filet mignon you'll ever put on your grill. Not from the supermarket, not even from the butcher, it's from bestfiletmignon.com. You see, the folks at Best Filet Mignon searched all over the United States for small family farms raising only the finest Angus beef from the highest quality cattle. The result, the most tender, succulent, flavorful steak you'll ever taste. That's why they call themselves Best Filet Mignon. Go to bestfiletmignon.com and order now. Choose between USDA Prime, Choice, or Select. Your steak is cut, vacuum sealed, and shipped fresh, not frozen like Omaha steaks. They even throw in the free shipping. Then grill them up and, well, you'll know what to do after that. Just promise you won't use any steak sauce, and trust me, for the best steak you'll ever taste, guaranteed, go to bestfiletmignon.com. That's bestfiletmignon.com and put in the coupon code Jacobs.
When you're thinking about New Orleans, why not let jazz cook for you?
Laissez les bon temps rouler. Hey folks, Papa Vic here to talk about what's new at your favorite restaurant, Jazz, a Louisiana Kitchen. The economy got you down? You don't need a fat wall to come to Jazz, I guarantee. Don't forget, All-American Tuesdays, where the best dish in KC is half price. Looking for live entertainment? Nobody in town plays more live music than Jazz. Check out our website, jazzkitchen.com, for daily band listings. Both locations, the original on 39th and State Line, and at the Legends in Village West. Jazz, where there's always a party every night.
Some of the best teams in the world are in Kansas City. The Chiefs, the Royals, Sporting, and the Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol? St. John and Bucati? Those two guys couldn't hold on.
Easy there, fellas. We may not be the two godfathers of Kansas City sports like you guys are,
but we do know how to have a good time talking sports.
And having a good time like Gary Lezak has a good time.
Make the Border Patrol a part of your morning, just like I do.
Watch Sports Radio 810's Border Patrol, weekday mornings from 7 to 8 on 38 The Spot.
Hello again, everyone. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Welcome to our show here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Joining me this morning is former head coach of the Kansas City Blazers, Pete Malone, a coach for 42 years. Coached all levels of swimming, and we're talking about parents and coaches with sports. And I wanted to mention, as I started off the show, this is our debut show, my debut show on 810WHBTV.com, our first simulcast. So welcome to all of you who are watching out there. And if you'd like to give us a call and ask a question, our phone number here is 913-3810810. 913-3810810. If you're a coach, or you want to coach, and you're questioning, well, what should I say? What shouldn't I say? Should I coach my kids? Would it be good to coach my kids? What's the point with coaching where I go too far? How do I learn the role? This man right here is an expert and can give great advice on that. You can shake your head, but it's true. Pete and I have known each other for a long time. And as I mentioned, I want to mention our sponsor, bestfiletmignon.com is my sponsor now. If you're into grilling, cooking steaks, you need to get a hold of this company. The number is 800-497-STEAK. 800-497-STEAK. They've got great gift packages, USDA Prime Choice or Select Steaks, Angus cattle, family farms in the Midwest, never ever have hormones or antibiotics, fresh and never frozen, overnight shipping via FedEx. They're great steaks. I've had them here. In fact, we're going to show just the packaging that they come in, and just great steaks here. And if you are into cooking, you need to get a hold of them and order some steaks. Once again, 800-497-STEAK, bestfiletmignon.com. So, Peter, let me ask this question. Successful coaches have certain qualities about them that stand out, in my opinion. Unsuccessful coaches have things that stand out about them. I always like to say, in fact, I want to make a t-shirt. A good coach is a good psychologist. A bad coach needs to see a sports psychologist. You like that one?
I love it.
But if we look
Let me add one thing, is I think if we'd all would accept and understand the reality of life, and is that the mind runs the body doesn't run the mind. You just got to dissect that comment. Okay?
Well, you and I obviously believe in that the problem is there's so many people out there that
I
don't.
don't know how you cannot believe it, because when you look at where medicine is studying and all the things we're learning about genetics and all the things we're learning about what can be done, and all you got to do is listen to some of the athletes, the ones that have reached highest success or the ones that have fallen off the top, you know what I mean? And we constantly are asking them the question, why? And the more you break it down, you realize how much their mind was such a critical part, not just what their birth gender was or what their genetics is.
Well, obviously we agree on that topic, but there are a lot of people out there who think being physically tough is the answer. And there are a lot of coaches who are out there try to get these kids to be tough, and they beat them down mentally. And, you hear this all the time. I'm going to break this kid down and then build him back up. Is that the way to teach a kid about confidence and to really be a positive coach and role model for them by beating them down? I've questioned that for years. There's some people, and I think they're a minute number, that might work with. But I think for the vast majority of people, that's not the way to build confidence or build a kid up.
I can't tell you that I never did the negative side of it, because I did. But the thing that I had going for me was because I've always sat down and analyzed it once a week, not just planning what my next week of practice is going to be, but I looked back at my past week. And I did that even on a daily basis, but extensively once a week before I started planning the next week. And I looked at how I conducted myself to get what I needed to do. And I do believe you can teach toughness and you can create toughness, but you have to find a way to do it. And I don't believe you drive them into the cellar to do that. It's kind of like they're a garden. You've got to cultivate the garden, and I don't think you build your garden by throwing a bunch of weed killer on it.
Well, but there are a lot of people who do believe that, and they think that's the way to do it. And I see today, I don't think we teach enough kids how to fail, how to screw up, make mistakes, and then bounce back from that. Because what I see is too many people doing today, too many coaches, is ruining kids. And I think failure is the greatest lesson for success. A lot of people, my friends, my son and my oldest son, who's a KU graduate, a huge KU basketball fan, has been very down in the dumps the last week because KU's lost some basketball games. So I'm like, you know what? They've got all these young kids playing. This is a learning process. And first of all, these games don't really matter. It's the conference play that matters and going to the NCAA. And to me, those games are the ones that are going to be more important. So I think this is a great learning. Bill Self, I think, is a great coach. Most people would agree on that.
He's a great educator.
Yeah. And so he's going to teach them. They won last night against New Mexico down at the Sprint Center. And so I think he's teaching them how to overcome these things and how to deal with that. And that's what a great coach is, and I think that's what you've done. But for coaches today who are coaching kids, what would you advise them in terms of working with kids about confidence? How can they help a youngster, and I don't care what the sport is because it really doesn't matter, how can you teach a young person to build their confidence up and to develop it in a positive way?
Well, number one, you got to treat success and failure identical. There's no difference. And one of the things that you like to use that we talked about years and years ago, was in the 1980s, about how I prepared my athletes for the big races. I mean, yes, you gradually teach them when they're little kids or they're going into local competitions what to do. You got to start building those mental skills, racing skills. You got to train them. You got to do all those other things. But one of the big key elements when they really start getting what I call the neighborhood racing is they really have to understand how to prepare for a very important race. And there's a difference for those that I call workout races and those that are high performance races. And that's the same thing as Bill's talking about. This is the time of year that usually has been a workout part of his season. But according to the sports page yesterday, they've traveled about 6 times as many miles to play games and haven't been home playing on their home court, which is comfort zone. But we have a wonderful access to media today, both from the radio, the TV, the newspaper, the internet. You get to really learn what the coaches are thinking, saying, and doing, because they are obligated by the rules to stop for that interview before they go off court or off the football field, which try that 25 years ago. You didn't touch them. You didn't know what they were thinking. So if you're a coach, study coaching. I studied coaching. It was a lot harder to find that information, not study coaching just in swimming. That was where I was doing it. And I can give you all the reasons why I coach swimming. I'm not here to sell swimming, but I am here to sell being an educator and letting that be your vehicle as you coach, because that's what the vast majority of us are. And we are going to coach at different stages. Bill is coaching at a different stage, but what I continually see from his comments, his actions, and how he conducts things is that he's never lost why he got into coaching basketball, and he's never lost the element that he's an educator.
And I pick up on that all the time too. He's a teacher, and that to me is what a coach should be. And I think if we focus more on youth sports and middle school sports, the kids who are getting involved at a younger age, what troubles me a lot is the role that a lot of coaches have now, that it's more about the coach than it is about the kids. It's more about winning the games or winning the championship than it is about teaching and developing and growing. And that's been a big concern for me. I've talked about it on the show for years. I've been on the radio now for 22 years, almost 23 years here in a couple of weeks. And it's what I've talked about forever. And it bothers me immensely. I have people that come in my office all the time. I have a 10-year-old baseball player, played 100 baseball games last summer. First question of the parents is, why are you letting your kid play 100 games? Well, that's what the coach said we need to do. Well, first thing you need to do is ask yourself, why are we trusting this coach? At 10 years of age, we figured that out. From April to September, that's a heck of a lot of baseball games. And traveling and doing all that for 10 years of age, I said, your son's going to be burned out by the time he's 12. Well, lo and behold, they're switching teams now. They're going to a team next year where they're only going to play 35 to 40, which I think is a lot better. And they realize now, because the coach was all upset that they didn't win a big championship. They're 10. Shouldn't they be having fun and learning and growing? Because he's still trying to figure. Their son is seeing me because he's troubled because they keep losing, and that's where the message has been lost, I think.
Well, there's a lot of subjects there, and I go back to the statement I made a couple of minutes ago. You got to treat success and failure identical. I think if you get that balance there, and that means you have to learn from your success. Most people don't spend any time breaking down why they won or how they won. They spend a huge amount of time discussing why they lost. Okay?
I think that's a great point. I think that's an excellent point to look at.
And I'm not saying you're inordinately out of balance, but you are out of balance because you don't spend enough time analyzing why you succeeded. Okay? Then you take that same principle, is that as a coach, that go back to what I opened the show with. Sports is a vehicle. It's not an end in itself. Yes, you might die and they might remember you more for being a baseball player because you are in the Hall of Fame. But they're going to remember you a lot more for the person you are. At least I promise you. Your children are, your grandchildren are, and the other people that come in your life are. And it's going to be the character of you that makes the difference. Sports is a vehicle, and we got to constantly be testing ourselves, is what I'm saying. And I think a coach that if you can't explain, and I challenged my parents and I challenged my athletes, if I can't give you 3 reasons of why I did something, because I call it my pyramid of success. And it's because I did learn a little bit in school, not a lot, because I wasn't that good a student, so there's a perfect example. But I mean, the triangle is the geometrically strongest structure. And so I've used that principle with everything I've done. There's got to be 3 points for why I did it. And that might be as simple as why I prepared 1 set, or why I took them to 1 swim meet, or why I did 1 thing with them. And sometimes I'd only come up with 1. And I would say to them, it was 1 darn good reason. And that reason was so overwhelming, you know what I mean, that I felt we needed to go forward. But you need to be constantly asking, are there 3 good reasons why I'm playing 100 baseball games? You know what I mean? And if that coach can't answer that, then you're probably not in the right place.
Well, he'll probably give you 3 reasons, but they're probably
I
not
said
going to
good
be. No, that's what I was going to go. They're probably not good reasons.
Educationally sound. Another measurement. When you listen to you as a parent, or as anything else, as an athlete, you need to use your resources.
Well, you're talking about a foundation. You're talking about having a foundation, a reason why you're doing what you're doing that has some balance in it, and that's combining the emotional, the psychological, the physical as well. And I think a lot of people don't do that. They're in it for themselves. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Joining me this morning is retired swim coach Peter D. Malone, coach for 42 years here in the Kansas City area, coach of Olympians. He's coached every level of sport. If you are a coach and you're questioning maybe how to motivate some of your kids, let me tell you, I've watched Pete motivate kids. He coached my youngest son for years. This man knows how to do it. If you have a question about motivating your kids, if you're coaching, if you're wondering what's the best way to build their confidence, what do you do if you have a youngster who's a young athlete whose confidence isn't very good? Give us a call. Our phone number is 913-3810-810. 913-3810-810. We're on the leader in sports, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Some of the best teams in the world are in Kansas City. The Chiefs, the Royals, Sporting, and the Border Patrol.
The Border Patrol? St. John and Bucati? Those 2 guys couldn't hold on.
Easy there, fellas.
We may not be the 2 godfathers of Kansas City sports like you guys are,
But we do know how to have a good time talking sports.
like having a good time like Gary Lezak has a good time.
Make the Border Patrol a part of your morning, just like I do.
Watch Sports Radio 810's Border Patrol, weekday mornings from 7 to 8 on 38 The Spot.
When you're thinking about New Orleans, why not let jazz cook for you?
Laissez les bon temps rouler. Hey folks, Papa Vic here to talk about what's new at your favorite restaurant, Jazz, a Louisiana Kitchen. The economy got you down? You don't need a fat wallet to come to Jazz, I guarantee. Don't forget, All Amer Tuesdays, where the best dish in KC is half price. Looking for live entertainment? Nobody in town plays more live music than Jazz. Check out our website, jazzkitchen.com, for daily band listings. Both locations, the original on 39th and State Line, and at the Legends in Village West. Jazz, where there's always a party every night.
Hear that? That's the sound of steaks on a grill. But this isn't just any steak, it's the most delicious filet mignon you'll ever put on your grill. Not from the supermarket, not even from the butcher, it's from bestfiletmignon.com. You see, the folks at Best Filet Mignon searched all over the United States for small family farms raising only the finest Angus beef from the highest quality cattle. The result? The most tender, succulent, flavorful steak you'll ever taste. That's why they call themselves Best Filet Mignon. Go to bestfiletmignon.com and order now. Choose between USDA Prime, Choice, or Select. Your steak is cut, vacuum sealed, and shipped fresh, not frozen like Omaha steaks. They even throw in the free shipping. Then grill them up and, well, you'll know what to do after that. Just promise you won't use any steak sauce, and trust me, for the best steak you'll ever taste, guaranteed, go to bestfiletmignon.com. That's bestfiletmignon.com and put in the coupon code Jacobs.
Good morning, everyone. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and welcome to our show here in Sports Radio 810 WHB. This is the Sports Psychology Hour, and I'm here every Sunday from 7 to 8 a.m., and today is our first live TV show on 810WHBTV.com. So welcome everyone who's watching on TV. And joining me this morning is the former head coach of Kansas City Blazers, Pete Malone. Pete coached for 42 years here in the Kansas City area. He's coached every level of athlete. And if you'd like to give us a call, if you've got a question about coaching, if you've thought about coaching your kids, if you've wondered about what's a positive or negative way to get my kids involved in sports, what do I do as a coach to help the kids I'm coaching get better? What are some of the things I've done that maybe haven't been so good? Give us a call. Pete's, you can't talk to anybody with more experience or knowledge than this man. I mean, he's coached every level, and he knows what he's doing. I personally work with the Kansas City Blazers with Pete for 27 years, and he's got a great understanding of sports and motivation. So give us a call at 913-381-810, 913-381-810. Pete, one thing I want to mention, I'm now on Twitter. I don't know if you are, but you're not? Shame on you. But my Twitter address is at @DRJSportsPsych. Not that you need to check that out, but at @DRJSportsPsych, so you can follow me on Twitter at that address. We've become so technologically advanced now. We have to do all these different things to promote ourselves and get people to understand things. But when it comes down to coaching, comes down to motivation, comes down to dealing with parents and kids, what was the method you used that was most successful? What worked the best for you?
Well, probably the most important thing was to be myself. But sometimes when they're very, very young, you have to help them get to know who that person is. And, as I opened up the show, I talked about that we're entertainers. When you put up a lot of these camouflages, frequently the kids don't know who you are. And so to develop trust, you got to find a way within your methods that they get to know who you are and why you're doing this. And then their confidence, as well as their parents, in what you're doing really comes out. Okay? And so I think that's part of the key to my success, was that I never failed to continue to bring that message.
Coaches today, I found, like I mentioned, I think most people get into coaching because they want to help kids and teach and develop. But this whole emphasis on winning and results and success has become so prominent, and I think blown out of proportion to the point. We have a lot of people talk about, well, we shouldn't give out ribbons and trophies and plaques. There should be rewards for success, and if you fail, you don't get it. I think when kids first get started, there's the importance of getting them involved and giving them motivation, but then there's a point where results do become important. I think you would agree with me on that. Where do you think winning and results should become an important component of sport?
Well, there's a quote that I used to measure myself, but I also would give it my athletes, and I got caught up in the last 10, 15 years of my coaching career, where I started seeing society shift, and I saw the amount of material rewards being out there, because there is a competition for the kids' times. And if I had to do anything else and change, because I reflect, you know what I mean, and I look at the sum of the product of what I did in bringing more material rewards to my program and everyday part of it, I would probably not have compromised in that, because I had kept selling that the real reward was what they learned today and what they did today, and that was enough. Because I used to have a quote that I really believe in: material rewards are here today and gone tomorrow, but who you are and what you are is with you for life. And that's why we came here today. We came here to make a difference, and you have to build one block at a time. And so it's kind of like when you look at a building, if you don't build a great foundation, and us that live in Tornado Alley certainly comprehend that. And if you live out in the West Coast, you got to think about the earthquakes. You know what I mean? And can the structure take it? If you're down in Florida, you better think about hurricanes. Are they structurally sound? And you can apply that. I got a quote that came to me this week. You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter the defeats so you can know who you are. That should be really valuable.
I think
who
that's
you
great.
are, and what you can rise from, and how you can you can still overcome. Now, most people might say, well, that's some speech given by some coach in a locker room or at halftime or whatever. Let me tell you who it's from. It's from Maya Angelou, poet and activist.
Obviously, that person understands, and I think it's about balance. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Joining me this morning is former head coach of the Kansas City Blazers, Pete Malone. As I mentioned before, if you have a question for us, give us a call. Our phone number is 913-381-0810. If you're a coach and you're wondering about how to motivate your kids, you're wondering, are you pushing them too hard or are you not pushing them enough? What if you've got a youngster who needs some help, needs some guidance, and you're not sure how to direct them? 913-381-0810 is our number. Give us a call. We'll take your call and we'll talk on air. Once again, we're on. This is our first live telecast on 810WHBTV.com. So check us out on the internet. You can watch the show. 913-381-0810 is our number here at Sports Radio 810 WHB. So Pete, if we look at youth sports today, and we look at success and failure, as I'm hearing you, it really comes back to balance. It comes back to the whole issue of teaching about balance, about being a good person, about having that foundation as a person. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Absolute. I think that, I go back to what I opened up the show with, why are we doing it? Why are they playing sport? And why are you coaching? Okay, go back and make sure you've answered those questions, but make sure those answers, if they need to shift in time, which they do, life's a journey. So you need to make sure you re-clarify those answers so that you make sure what you're planning, what you're doing fits what your real values are and principles are, and not let it become bigger than who you are.
All right, we've got a call. Let's go to the lines here, the phone lines. Let's see. We've got Bill on the line. Let's see what Bill has to say. Bill, good morning. How are you?
Thank you, good friend. No. I think that sports is a tremendous vehicle, and now because of the evolution, there's more of it available. And one of the negatives to it, to me, is taking away what I call recreational playtime, where they go out and make the sport themselves, which really diminishes creativity. I think there's, again, if I had to make any recommendation, I'd look at how much time I'm asking my child, and I promise you, I demanded a lot of time out of my athletes. But I also, that took on a bigger responsibility for me as a coach then to create what I call creative playtime, so that I don't diminish their creativity. Sports is a vehicle. It's not the only one. You can do this with a violin. You can do it on the piano. You can do it with dance. You can do it with, I hate to say it, computer games. I'm not a big computer game fan. But whatever vehicles you're using, ask yourself why you're using those vehicles and what you're doing with
Bill,
them.
let me ask you a question. You've got kids, grandkids. What do you have? Okay. How old are your grandchildren? Okay. And your kids are what, 30s? Okay. When your kids were growing up, when your kids were your grandkids' age, did they go out and play without parents supervising them? Right, but what about your grandkids? Are they outside playing, or is everything they're doing supervised? And that's the whole thing. That's the problem I think Pete's addressing. I'm addressing here. And Bill, thanks for your call. We got to let you go. I appreciate it very much. That's a great point he's bringing up. We've got a few minutes left here on the show, and to me, that's a big part of what's wrong with sports today, is everything structured and organized. And we don't have enough time for kids to really create on their own, and I think that's one of the problems we've got. Your points before we wrap things up.
Well, real quick, I just think that means we have a greater responsibility to create what I call recreational activities, because life has changed. We have a lot of other risks. We just can't let our kids run around everywhere and anywhere. But again, that means we have a greater role to not lose the values of the things we had in the years before.
Let's go to one more caller before we wrap things up. Gordon, you're on the air with us. How are you this morning? Great. We got about a minute here for you. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much.
Creating, you guys create, and when you say that, Gordon, what do you mean? So you made them think and helped them grow and helped them think for themselves, is what you're saying. Listen, thank you for your call, Gordon. I'm going to let you go. We're running out of time. Appreciate it. You know, Pete, we've got about a minute here to wrap things up. What would you say to parents and coaches, summarizing what we've talked about today from your perspective?
Well, I would like to have everybody listen to the last two callers and their thoughts and their questions, because we need to come up with answers how to continue what the second caller just shared, and with the first caller, Bill Nix, who I think was a great resource in my life because he was the director of Park and Recreation in the city of Lenexa, and without his supporting me, I couldn't have done a lot of things. But more importantly, his questions, we need to come up with answers for those questions because we can't lose the genius that have preceded us.
Well, that's why this show's here, and that's why I talk about this every week on this show. I want to thank you, my friend, for coming in this morning. He had to get up early again, once again, but thank you so much for coming in. Pete Malone, coach for 42 years here in Kansas City. And one last thought you'd like to leave our listeners with, the one thing that you think you could tell a coach that would really inspire them and motivate them to teach.
Well, you're there at a moment in time in their life, but make sure you value that moment you're there.
I don't think you can say any better than that. Pete, thanks for coming in this morning, my friend. I appreciate it very much. On our first inaugural debut here on TV. We're on 810WHBTV.com. You can check us out, and if you want someone to watch the show or listen to the show, you can check it out online. And I'm here every Sunday morning. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can reach me at my office. That number is 816-561-5556. I am taking on new clients. I give speeches on these topics all the time. Encourage you to give me a call there. If you want to check out my website, it's winnersunlimited.com. And I'm now on Twitter, as I mentioned earlier. My Twitter address is DRJSportsPsych. DRJSportsPsych. Follow me on Twitter. And as I started off the show mentioning, we have a sponsor, BestFiletMignon.com. If you want to get some steaks for the holidays, you want to grill some steaks, entertain some friends and relatives, it's 800-497-STEAK, BestFiletMignon.com. Check them out. I guarantee you'll be happy with those steaks. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs here every Sunday morning from 7 a.m. Thank you so much for listening this morning. Peter Malone, my friend, thanks for coming in, taking time and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you for inviting me.
Have a great week, Kansas City. And remember, I'll be back here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. We're on TV now, 810WHB.com. Sign up for me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Check out my website. And follow us on TV. Have a great week, Kansas City. And we'll talk to you next Sunday in Leader in Sports, Sports Radio 10 WHB.
Hear that? That's the sound of steaks on a grill. But this isn't just any steak, it's the most delicious filet mignon you'll ever put on your grill. Not from the supermarket, not even from the butcher, it's from bestfiletmignon.com. You see, the folks at Best Filet Mignon searched all over the United States for small family farms raising only the finest Angus beef from the highest quality cattle. The result? The most tender, succulent, flavorful steak you'll ever taste. That's why they call themselves Best Filet Mignon. Go to bestfiletmignon.com and order now. Choose between USDA Prime, Choice, or Select. Your steak is cut, vacuum sealed, and shipped fresh, not frozen like Omaha steaks. They even throw in the free shipping. Then grill them up, and well, you'll know what to do after that. Just promise you won't use any steak sauce, and trust me, For the best steak you'll ever taste, guaranteed, go to bestfiletmignon.com. That's bestfiletmignon.com and put in the coupon code Jacobs.